Okay, guys. So, working on our homework tonight, you guys are only doing 1 through 14. We've already done the first few random here, 1, 2, 3 together. Um, we have different types of decimals. Sometimes we're dividing a whole number with a decimal by decimal. Sometimes we're dividing decimals by decimals, right, without whole numbers. So we have to really think deeply about visualizing or in comparing these numbers. Okay, so if we're going to look at number 4, I have a whole number. I have 9 and 61 hundredths. Okay, so I know I can round that number. And this is already a whole number. So if I were to round 9 and 61 hundredths, I could round that to a whole number 10. Okay, now dividing it by 31, or even if I rounded it to 30, I have to think to myself, this is a smaller number and this is a larger number. So what does this look like? 10 divided by 31 or 30. Does 30 go into 10? It doesn't go in even one time because 30 is 3 times as large as the 10. So I know that that number is going to be less than 1. So when I'm deciding on where I'm going to put my decimal place in my answer, it has to be less than 1. It wouldn't go here. 3 and 1/10 is not less than 1. I definitely wouldn't put it here. 31 is not less than 1. If I were to move it here, 31 hundredths, is that less than 1? Yes. Okay, so 31 hundredths makes sense as an answer. Okay. Okay, number 6. 8 and 4/10 divided by 2/10. I think we started this in class. I didn't finish it apparently. So 8 and 4/10, I would round to 8. 2/10. If I were to think about this in terms of money, right? Same thing as 20 cents. What does that look like? 20 cents. I always have you envision coins, 10 cents, 25 cents, or even numbers that are easy to count, 50 cents, 75 cents. This 2/10 is really close to 25 cents, right? Which looks like this. It's really close to a quarter. So if I were to change this to 0.25 for 25 hundredths, I have to think to myself, how many quarters make a dollar? One whole, right? 4 quarters make a dollar. So if I have 8 whole, which means $8, and I have an answer here of 4 and a 2, I know that this number is going to be bigger because I'm taking whole number 8 and I'm dividing it into fourths. Okay? So if I'm dividing it into fourths, I'm actually making each whole, I'm splitting it up into 4 pieces. So this really in essence means 8 times 4. Okay, because again, if I have one whole and I'm dividing it into fourths, I no longer have 1, right? I now have 1, 2, 3, 4 because I'm breaking them apart. So 8 times 4 is 32. So if my answer here is 42, where would that decimal point go? What is closest to 32? So if I put my 4 and my 2 here, would it make sense to go here as a decimal, 42 hundredths? That's not anywhere close to the whole number 32, right? So we should immediately think 42 is my whole number. It's close to whole number 32. So I could simply write just 42, or I can add a decimal and then the number 0. Okay, number 8. Actually, you know what? We can skip that one. It looks very similar to this. Do the same process. Okay, let's skip over to number 10. Let's do this one. Number 10, I have a whole number with a decimal, whole number and a decimal. We can do this. I think you guys can do this, but let's do this one anyhow since I'm here. 7 and 6/10. I want to round, but I also want to take a look at this number because this divisor is what's going to dictate what I want to change this number to. If I want to round 3 and 3/10, I could round it down to 3. Now I need to divide this number by 3. So this number, I need to get rid of my decimal, and I need to make this number a multiple, right, of 3. So 3 times no number makes 7. So I would have to round this up to 9, right? Because 9 divided by 3 is 3. So if 3 is my estimated answer, if I have a 2, a 3, and a 0 here, where would I put my decimal point to give me an answer near 3? 230 is definitely not near number 3. 23, I'm getting closer. How about if I put my decimal point here? 2 and 3/10. Does that get me even closer to my estimate of 3? Yes, it does. Right, so there is your estimate there. Okay, let's do number 12. And then maybe we'll stop there, since otherwise I'm going to end up doing most of your homework. Haha. Okay, so number 12. I have a very large decimal here. I'm going to sort of look at my divisor first. Okay, I have 2/10 again, which I had up here. Why reinvent the wheel when I can just use my numbers that I was using here? 20 cents is really close to 25 cents. Okay, now what makes this problem different than this one is this was a whole number and a decimal. If we're looking here, this is just a decimal. It's not even the number 1. It is less than 1 because it is a decimal. So if I just leave my decimal here, I want to look at this. I have a decimal, and I'm dividing it by a decimal. Okay, this is less than the number 1. This is also less than the number 1. So if I were to compare these two, if I'm dividing a decimal into this number, and they're fairly close in value, right? If I were to round this, I could round this to, actually, I can even keep this the same. I could round this to 1500ths and keep this as 2/10. But these numbers are very close in value, okay? So my answer, because if I'm comparing these decimals together, they're very close in value, our number is going to be close to 1, okay? So if I'm looking here, my answer is 074. How can I create a decimal that's going to get me really close to the number 1, but not whole number 1, okay? Because again, 25 is larger than, this is a larger decimal than this, okay? Because if you take your decimal, if you look at your decimals, I have 2/10 here. I only have 1/10 here. So I'm dividing a decimal that is bigger than this, than my dividend, okay? So my answer has to be less than 1. So if I go back again to the answer, where does my decimal go? A number that is less than 1. Well, 74 is bigger than 1. 7 4/10 is bigger than 1, because that would be a whole number. But if I move my decimal point here, 74 hundredths, I have 0 whole numbers. 74 hundredths is really close to a 1. Okay, so there you go. There's your answer. So again, you have to think deeply. Be very careful when you're looking at whole numbers versus decimals. Here you have a whole number and a decimal, a whole number and a decimal. These are all obviously easier to do because we're used to doing problems like this. Okay, do your best. I know it's a struggle. This will really help you increase your skill in number sense in general. Where we go from here after this lesson, it gets easier, believe me, okay? But go ahead and plow through these other problems. Do your best. That's all I can ask, okay? And then we'll talk about this tomorrow, okay? All right, have a good night, guys.